What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another video here in Dallas, Texas. We got TCH Live on the agenda. It's a 10-25 game, but the $50 straddle is going to be on the entire time. I'm in for $5,000. That's the max for now. It's match the stack. I brought 15 grand with me, and spoiler alert, it all gets on the table. You're going to want to watch this video. Some big bluffs coming your way and some big made hands as well. If you guys are new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I got a bunch of Vegas WSOP videos coming your way. Firing the main event this year, my first time ever. Drop a subscribe to follow along on the journey. Appreciate all the support. Let's get right into the hands. Let's go. All right, we're in for $5,000 in the first hand of the night. We look down at King 10 offsuit from the small blind. I decided to raise it up to $150, and we're going to get called in two spots. HCR and Fire both put in the call, bringing us off to a flop which comes Ace-7 deuce rainbow. First to act is never good, but I think I have the range advantage on this board when no one 3-bets me, so I start with a small sizing of $150, and of course you can see HCR has the ace in his hand. For some reason, he didn't decide to put in the 3-bet, and he's going to put in the call here, and we're off to the turn, which comes the 8 of hearts. Even though I don't have the best hand, I think I have the best range. I'm going to have all of the pocket aces, pocket sevens, of course, as it's on my hat and my favorite hand. I'll have ace king, ace queen, ace jack, and HCR should really have none of that. So at this point, he could pretty much have pocket sevens, pocket deuces, and then maybe a weak hand like ace-7 or ace-deuce. It's a very narrow range. He has a lot of random hands in there, so I think I'm going to take one more stab at this pot. $775 in the middle, and I'm going to see if $475 gets the job done. If any more money goes in the pot from HCR, I'm going to be shutting down on the river. And unfortunately for us, that's exactly what happens. HCR puts in the call with his top pair, and we see the jack of hearts peel off on the river. Like I said on the turn, I'm shutting down on the river here. I could have pocket jacks, but yeah, when he calls two streets, it's more likely he has sevens, deuces, ace-7, ace-deuce, or of course the random ace-10 of diamonds. I check it over to him, and he pretty quickly checks behind. That $1,700 pot is not going our way, but this next hand is definitely an interesting one, so you're going to want to buckle your seatbelts. All right, the action opens up here with JD with ace-jack of clubs. He starts in the +2 position with a standard raise to 150. I'm in the hijack, and I decide to put in the call. What are all those red knit buttons in front of all of us? Well, it's the knit game, minus the standing part. We all get a button. When you win a hand, you toss it into the middle, and you get rid of it. The last person with a knit button in front of them pays out everybody at the table $100. So it's a pretty steep price if you lose. And of course, I don't have any intention of doing so. So I put in the call here with pocket fives. Pretty great hand to flop a set, win a large pot, and get rid of that infamous knit button. HCR puts in the call for 150, and Holiday does as well. Dong decides to float with the ace-6 offsuit, and just like that, we are going 5 ways to a flop with pocket fives, but unfortunately it doesn't come queen jack 7 with 2 hearts. HCR decides to start with a bet for $125. You can see HCR has a lot of possibilities on this board. The front door flush draw, they got some backdoor straight draw ideas, and middle pair. JD has middle pair with the best kicker, and he puts in the call, and pocket fives is probably just a muck most of the time, but when you factor in the knit game, and if I spike a 5 on the turn, I could win a large one, so I decide to put in the call here for a very cheap price. We're off to the turn, which isn't a 5, but it comes the 3 of clubs. HCR now decides not to slow down, but instead keep betting for a small price of $250. And when JD just puts in the flat call here, I think his range is capped. He would never have pocket queens, pocket sevens, pocket jacks. The point is, JD's never going to have that strong of a hand. You can see that's exactly what he has, a mediocre hand with a great kicker. So when the action comes around to me and I'm closing it, I could either put in the call, I could fold, which seems very reasonable, or I could do something tricky here and try to exploit the small bet from HCR and the very weak call from JD. Even though I didn't turn a set, that 3 of clubs could very easily have been a 5. I could also have pocket 3s here if I'm doing the exact same thing with pocket 5s. So let's try to target our read and go for a large raise here and see if we can get both players to fold. The bet was $250, there was a call. I decided to make it $900. Perhaps I could size up a little bit more. But the point I'm trying to get across here is a raise looks very strong, so I don't really think the price is too big of a mistake. If they're going to have some flush draws and calling for 900, they're also going to call for like 1200. So yeah, I'm just trying to get some weak 7x, some weak jack x, and maybe if they'll fold a weak queen, that would be a huge win. Let's see what happens here on the turn. You can see that this raise puts HCR in a very weird spot. He isn't closing the action, and JD could definitely come in for another back raise. So you can see he folds a very strong hand, which is a huge win for us. He folds the flush draw and middle pair. One down, one to go. Can we get JD to fold? Not so fast. He's a sticky opponent. He plays these high stakes games all the time. And even though my raise looks strong, my story isn't the most credible. Like, what am I representing on this turn with a raise? I mean, sure, I could have pocket sevens, but wouldn't I have wanted to raise that on the flop with two hearts out there and a queen and a jack, just unblocking everything? Yeah, so even though my raise is strong, not the most credible story, and JD's a good player, he puts in the call, and that means we are going to have to fire large on the river. And hopefully it's not a heart, and it's not. The four of clubs is pretty much the biggest brick in the deck. So when JD checks it over to me, I'm going off of my read that he didn't have a strong hand on the turn, and he's just getting a little bit sticky on the turn and not wanting to fold. So I'm going to have to put my money where my mouth is. When he checks it over to me, I have 2,700 in my stack. The nit game's on. There's 3,200 in the pot. Everything is leading me to jamming it all in, and that's what I decided to do, 2,700 in the middle. Let's see if JD can make a great fold here, and hopefully I can win this pot and be up $900 on the session. I like the jam, and it definitely puts JD in a tough spot. You can see him cracking his knuckles. He's not stoked about it. That's a sign of, he's not sure if he has the best hand, but he also doesn't want to let it go. I'm really hoping he does let it go, though. That would be a huge disaster if he puts in the call here with second pair. It would have been an absolute soul read. And I say would have been, but it is a soul read. He puts in the call. He doesn't believe me. I sheepishly turn over my pocket fives, and JD is taking down that $8,500 pot. He's going to win it with second pair, and he looks like an absolute gangster on the stream as well. No fear, we came to play. Instead of topping up for 5K more, I decided to double that, reach into my bag, and pull out 10 grand. We are in for everything that we got. I'm in the hijack with ace jack of spades and raise it up to $200. Fire is in the cutoff and decides to jam all in for 3.3K. The nit game definitely induces a lot of action, and Fire is showing how it definitely does that. He rips it all in for ace deuce offsuit. Everyone gets out of the way, and the action's back over to me. You can see I have a slam dunk call in the moment if I know he's ripping it with this light of a hand. But, I mean, he could have pocket queens, pocket kings. He could have aces, ace king, ace queen. He could just have a pocket pair and be ahead of me, and we'd be flipping. So, given the fact I don't want to be hoping to be flipping, I decide to muck my cards. Of course, he has to show it with the nit game out there in order to relinquish the button. And I feel kind of like a dingus, but if he had ace queen there, I'd be in a rough shape, and I definitely would have been pretty bummed about that. So can't be too mad about that situation. I'll take that information to heart, and hopefully I can pick it off in the future. 2 hands ago, JD got me in a large pot. Let's see if I can get him back here. I decided to put the $100 straddle on to induce some action. The net game is not on at the moment, so take that for what you will. I have pocket nines in the +2 position. JD decides to open it from under the gun with king 7 of diamonds, which seems pretty standard given the fact that everyone has folded it around to him. He only has to get through me and one other player. But he's not going to get through me that easily. I decided to come in for a 3-bet to $850, which seems pretty standard with pocket nines. JD's not going anywhere. He has a suited king X, puts in the call, and just like that, we are going off to a flop, which comes ace 5-4 all hearts, and JD checks it over to me. Now, even though I'm going to have the range advantage on this board with the pocket aces, ace king, ace queen, JD could still have pocket fours, pocket fives, and either of us can pretty much have all of the suited hearts in our range. So when JD checks it over to me, the board is monochrome or monotone. Let me know down in the comments what you guys prefer. Is it monochrome or monotone when it's all hearts out there? Either way, I decide to check behind, and the turn comes the jack of clubs. When JD checks it over to me for a second time, I don't think there's much point in betting. He's going to call me with any ace, any strong heart, or any jack. So I'm pretty much just bloating the pot and hoping to fade a heart. I decide to check behind, and we see a pretty clean river. It comes the deuce of spades. Only thing that would improve is a hand that has a 3 in it, but I don't think he's going to have too much 3x in his range. JD has king eye, and I think he needs to tickle this pot here and just put some money in the middle. He can't get to showdown with king high and win. He needs to get me to fold pocket sixes, pocket sevens, pocket eights. Of course, I have pocket nines. And he decides to bet out for $900. It's a good bet. Puts me in a weird spot because any 2 hearts, any set, any ace X or jack X has me beat. But given the fact that he got a large one off of me earlier, I'm going to put in the call here and make him show his hand. I put in the call. He shows a hand that is not good. It's inferior to my pocket nines. Pretty great call from me there, and stoked that I put it in. I get rid of the nit button and get rewarded with that $3,600 pot. All right, we're crawling our way back. We were stuck 5K. Now we're only stuck $3,500. I look down at pocket queens from under the gun. It's a great hand to pick up at any point, let alone when there are straddles out there. Paulo raises it up from the +2 position to $150. And the action's on me. I decide to come in for a 3-bet, and I make it $700. Fire gets out of the way, and AJ decides to fold. We are going heads up with Paulo on a great board. Queen 10-7. Bang! We flop top set. Dream board for us, hopefully has pocket 10s or our favorite hand, pocket 7s. I decide to go for a standard C-bet, around half the size of the pot, and the action's over to Paulo, who has middle pair. Facing a $700 bet, I don't think he can fold just yet. He has a pair, he has some backdoor ideas. Be a little bit nitty to fold, and Paulo's not a nit. He puts in the call, and we're going off to the turn, which comes the Jack of Hearts. Paulo now picks up the open-ended straight draw, and I do have range advantage on this board. Of course, I have pocket queens, I'll have pocket jacks, but more importantly, I'll have ace-king suited and offsuit here, where Paulo shouldn't have too much of it, only calling at a small frequency. I think for that reason, I definitely want to keep betting here, especially when the backdoor hearts come in. So yeah, checking here, even though the board is getting wet, I think would be a small mistake, and I decided to size up here 2/3 the size of the pot for $2,000. Unfortunately for us, Paulo does not have a good hand like Queen Jack, Jack 10, pocket 10s, pocket 7s. He relinquishes his hand, but it definitely feels good to build the momentum, taking down another pot coming my way, and suddenly we're down to only $1,900 in losses, up from our $5,000 loss early on. Crawling our way back, and pocket 8s is a great hand to continue the momentum with. I decide to raise it up to $150, and HCR decides to defend from the +1 position with King Deuce offsuit. A little bit light, but it's great for us when the board comes Ace 8 Deuce. Bang! We flop middle set. Back-to-back sets, back-to-back bangs. We got the bang on the sweater, maybe that's why it's happening. We're stuck on this session, and we're hoping that HCR has some random ace-x in his range, maybe pocket deuces. That would be legendary. I decided to go for a standard C-bet into him, and unfortunately he mucks. So yeah, the first part is to make the set, the second part is to get value. We were 1 for 2 in that procedure there, and unfortunately, even though we're winning the pot, it feels like a little bit of a loss there, wasting pocket 8s and middle set. All right, JD and I are 1 for 1 on the session, although he won a large one and I won a medium-sized pot. Let's see if we can win a large one against him here and try to get even on the night. JD opens it from the +2 position with Queen 8 of clubs to $150. I'm looking down at Queen 9 of diamonds from the hijack. The nit game is back on. Remember, it's $100 a person. And yeah, we're both battling for it here. I put in the call, trying to win a large one and get rid of that button. Holiday decides to defend from the big blind with Ace 6 of clubs, and we are going 3 ways to a flop, which gives me top 2 pair, Queen 9-5 rainbow. The action checks over to me, and there's not too much I'm going to be scared about. I have Queen 9, that's top 2 pair. I'm beating King Queen. Of course, I'm beating JD's Queen 8. The only thing I'm really worried about is pocket 5s. I have all the other sets blocked, so I decided to check behind, try to play it a little deceptively here. Not really too many cards I'm scared about on the turn. And the 6 of diamonds definitely isn't one. I now pick up the backdoor diamond draw as well. Holiday checks it for a second time, and JD has top pair. He plays it sneaky sometimes, and this is definitely a one spot that he did as well. He decides to check it over to me for a second time, and top 2 pair now has to go for value. It's going to look a little bluffy when I check behind on the flop. I have the nip button in front of me, so don't really expect JD to fold. Holiday has a pair. She could find a fold here. I don't think that would be unreasonable. And when I bet $350, it's a small price. It brings Holiday in, and JD definitely can't fold with his top pair. With all the gutters out there and also the backdoor diamond draw, he puts in the call, and we're off to the river, which comes a brick, the deuce of hearts, and the action checks over to me for a second time. I'm very confident I have the best hand when I don't get check raised on the turn, so I'm going to go for a large sizing, try to polarize, and make it look like a bluff. I have the nip button in front of me, so I definitely am capable of bluffing, as you've seen a few hands ago. Into JD, I made an $8,500 bluff. But yeah, we are going to go for a chunky size of $1,200. I don't blame Holiday for getting out of the way. She makes a good fold. JD, on the other hand, is in a tough spot. He has top pair. He's kind of under-repped his hand by not check raising or betting himself on the flop, turn, or river. So he's in a weird spot. The front door straight draw has now bricked off, and the diamond draw on the turn has also bricked. So I think he definitely has a call here. The only thing to note is against my player profile. Am I going to be bluffing this large that often? I mean, you saw me do it a few hands ago against JD, and I'm definitely trying to change that image that I have. At the same time, though, in the past, I don't really think I'm going for that many big bluffs. So yeah, I think he could find a fold here. Flip a coin, JD. Let's see what you do, and I hope it lands on heads. Put the money in. He does. He puts in the call. We are going to win that $4,100 pot. I turn over my 2 pair, And yeah, we are pretty much even on the session now, and it definitely feels pretty good getting out of a 5K hole, getting rid of that knit button. A lot of things going my way in the second half of this session. I'm going to keep the momentum going with Queen Deuce of Diamonds. That's the hand of Israeli Ron, a Los Angeles native legend. There's a $50 straddle on. I raise it up to 150, and HCR decides to defend with his pocket fives. We see a board which comes Jack 7-4 with 2 clubs, and Queen Deuce has no playability on this board. It would be pretty much a 7% equity bluff here, so I decided to start with a check. HCR has third pair and checks it behind, and that brings in the 10 of spades on the turn. Is my queen high here going to be good at a large percentage of the time? I don't think so, and I think when HCR checks behind on the flop, it kind of caps his range. I don't think he's going to be doing that with a lot of his flush draws. He's definitely not going to be doing that with a jack. Maybe some 7 or 4x might do it, for instance 7-6 or 4-5. Still, I think I can barrel here on the turn, and then if he calls, barrel on the river and get him to fold a lot of those hands. That's what I decided to do. I start telling the story with a small bet here on the turn. It's $200, and yeah, it gets the job done. You see, he folds a better hand. Taking a scab there and just reading the opponent definitely worked out well for me in that spot, and pretty stoked on the way I played that hand. All right, we got some momentum going, and I decided to keep it going from the cutoff, and I raise up King 7 of spades to $150. Fire decides to play a beautiful hand, Ace King of Diamonds, in a very sneaky way. He just puts in the call, and that brings in HCR as well with a 6-5 offsuit from the big blind. We're going 3 ways to a flop, which doesn't help any of us. It comes Queen, Queen 10 with 2 clubs. Everyone checks around on the flop, bringing in the turn, which comes the 4 of hearts. When HCR checks it over to me, I'm going to go for another stab. You saw it worked out nicely in the last hand. Don't really think anyone's trapping here with a queen with 2 clubs out there on the flop. So I decide to stab out into this $530 pot to the tune of $200. Fire makes a pretty tight fold. I think he definitely needs to be peeling with his ace-king high there. A lot of draws out there, and how often am I going to have a queen in that spot? But definitely stoked that he found the fold there, and we're going to take down that $730 pot with yet another bluff. We're keeping the bluffs going. Dong raises it up to $150 from the hijack with pocket deuces. I look down at ace-4 suited from the small blind. It's definitely a hand I could call, but I like a 3-bet way better. I decided to 3-bet him to $550, and Dong puts in the call. We see a pretty great board for my hand, and for my range, it comes King 5-3 with 2 hearts. The action's on me. I have the gutter to the wheel. I'm also going to have all the strong King X's in my range. I have pocket kings. Dong's going to have pocket 3s, pocket 5s more than myself. Still, I'm going to go for a bet here and fire out for $500. Dong could just fold this. He has a very vulnerable hand, but he's a tricky player, and he decides to put in the call in position. My thought process here is that he's just calling to try to take it away on the turn. For instance, he can go for a check raise on the turn. He could also spike a deuce and win a large one against my ace-king or king-queen. He decides to float here. I don't hit it. He's putting more money in the middle. We see a great card on the turn. It's the queen of clubs. It's definitely great for my range, so I don't want to slow down here and check it over to Dong. I think if I did, he would have blasted off into me and tried to get me to fold a hand exactly like this, like some ace-10, ace-jack, yeah, ace-9 type of hand. But that's not what I decided to do. Luckily, I put more money in the middle, $1,100, just telling the story. I have an ace-king, king-queen, pocket kings, pocket queens type of hand. If he has a heart draw, he's definitely going to put more money in the middle, but he doesn't. He has a 5th pair, decides to make a good fold, and just like that, taking down our 5th hand in a row, $3,300 coming my way. And yeah, we are only stuck 1.4K now on the session. Stream has ended. We're going to play 3 more hands off stream. I pull out my camera, and we are going to get to work here with 3 5 of diamonds. I decided to raise it up to $150 from the big blind. Paulo in the straddle puts in the call, and we are going heads up out of position to a flop, which comes 8-6-4 with 1 diamond. Open-ended straight draw and the backdoor diamond draw seems pretty good. I decided to go for a c-bet here to the tune of $150, and the action's on Paulo, which puts in the call. We see an interesting card. It comes the 10 of spades. It completes the front door straight draw, which is 7-9. I didn't pick up any equity, so I decided to start with a check. And Paulo does not want to check behind. He either has a draw or a very good made hand. He bids out 2/3 the size of the pot for $400. The action's back over to me. I put in the call, which I think is a decent play, but I kind of like a check raise a lot better. I could be doing this with a hand like pocket 6s, pocket 8s, pocket 4s. Calling here is a little bit weird because if I call and miss on the river, what am I going to do? Just lead out into him? Kind of looks a little weird. If I check it over to him, he could check behind with a weak hand like 8-9 or 6-7 and just scoop the pot against my 5 high. So yeah, I like a check raise a lot better than a call, and we see a brick on the river, which comes the 9 of spades. Like I said on the turn, it's a little bit weird if I just lead out. However, this 9 of spades completes a lot of things that Paulo might be scared about. The backdoor flush draw comes in, and now any 7x has a straight. Yeah, I have 5 high. I'm kind of left in a weird spot. If I have any chance of winning this, I got to bet out into him to the tune of $1,000. I can credibly rep any backdoor spade draw. I could have some 7x in my range, although I did 3-bet pre-flop. Am I really going to be doing this with a set? I don't think so. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit fishy. Hopefully this gets through. Otherwise, we're going to lose a $3,500 pot. But luckily for us, Paulo decides to muck his cards, which we're definitely stoked about. Taking in that $1,400 pot feels pretty great with 5 high. All right, 2 hands to go here. Dong opens the button up to $150. I'm in the big blind and decide to come in for a 3-bet to the tune of $625. Just putting the pressure on, 5-handed, definitely a strong hand. Got to be 3-betting. And Dong defends and puts in the call, leading us off to a flop, which comes ace-9-6 with 2 spades. Way better for my range, and I know this, so I go for a c-bet of $500. Dong snap folds, so we definitely had the best hand there. I show the table, and taking in that $1,300 pot leads us into the last hand of the night, where I have ace-9 of spades from the cutoff. I raise it up to $150, and Paulo from the button comes into the 3-bet for $500. 5-handed, I could have some 4-bets in my range. I decide not to. I'm not too studied in these short-handed games. And we're playing pretty deep here, around 12.5k effective. Hopefully we cooler him in an all-spade flop. But yeah, of course that's not what happens. The board comes 7, deuce, deuce. Interesting board here. I start with a check in the actions on Paulo. He goes for a very small bet of $275. I think he'd be doing this with a lot of hands like Jack 10, King Queen. So yeah, I can't be folding my ace high here. I put in the call, and we see a turn card, which comes the Queen of Clubs. I check it over to Paulo for a second time, and now he decides to check behind, which is definitely an interesting spot. I think if he had any Queen X, like Queen 10, Queen Jack, King Queen, he would just keep betting on the turn. Given the fact he went for a small bet on the flop and then checks the turn, it's possible he has a hand like pocket 8s, pocket 10s, pocket jacks that doesn't want to bloat the pot. Yeah, so definitely keeping that information in mind when the deuce of spades peels off on the river. I think about leading out into him here, but at the end of the day, I didn't really think he would fold a hand like pocket 8s, pocket 9s, pocket 10s. I think he would have just called there unless I overbet the pot. Didn't really want to overbet the pot the last hand of the night, so I check it over to him, hoping to beat a hand like King 10, King Jack, maybe 10-9 suited, stuff like that. I check it over to Paulo. Unfortunately, he snap checks behind with ace-king, so yeah, I probably could have got that to fold with a nice $700 to $1,200 bet on the river. It's neither here nor there. He's going to take in that $1,600 pot to end the night. And let's see our final totals. How did we do? All right, you guys, that wraps up that 5-hour session here at TCH Live. Got out for just above 13,000, so a net loss of just under $2,000 on the day. Some fun hands there. I'm definitely playing out of the box, trying to put some more bluffs in there where they make sense. Amazing call there by JD when he called me with ace-jack and I had the 5s. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of my play as of recent. I've been trying to work on some things, put in some studying off the table. Hopefully it's paying off. We are gearing up towards a huge WSOP run. That is coming in the next few videos. Going to play a few of the 2 million guarantee, 4 million guarantee, the main event, mystery bounties galore. If you guys want to see that, be sure to drop a subscribe. Go check me out on Instagram and Facebook and all that jazz. Good luck on the felt, you guys, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.